Welcome back. In this video, we will have a look at the navigation drawer. So if we go down on this page, you can go to Material IO, Components, Navigation Drawer, Flutter, Anatomy. So if we look at the anatomy of a navigation drawer, by the way, this is what we'll create in this lesson. So we'll create a navigation drawer. So that's that little three lines there on the left-hand side. And if you click on them, it opens up your navigation drawer. So in this case, you can see that we've got a drawer header there. So that's the first part there. Number one, they say, is the container. So that's the thing that contains this whole navigation bar. And then there's a header, which is optional, this part there. So our header will have this picture in the background with a name and an email address with a picture. And then at the bottom, we've got a list of items. So you can see that there's also a divider. So I'm not placing a divider in this example of us right at the top there, but you will see there's two dividers at the bottom. So we'll look at the dividers also. But because I have a picture there, it's already dividing the picture part with the list part of the items. Then when we get to the items, you can see there's an active text overlay. So it's this purple part, and you can see in our example, we'll have that blue part. If I click on Start, you can see it opens up that page for Start, and you can see Start is now selected. If I click on Drafts, you'll see the Drafts page opening up, and that one is selected. So it's this overlay or that background color for that specific tile. And then if you go down also, you have this text that is actually not selected. So we talk about active text. So this one is active text, where you can see here also the drafts and the icon is blue. That's the active text. And then you've got this active text overlay, which is the background there, that background blue color. And then you can also get your inactive text, which is the rest. So that's like sent, start, and inbox now. It's inactive text. They all look the same. So you can clearly identify which one has been clicked. Then also we've got a subtitle and so forth, but we will not do a subtitle and the rest in here. So the subtitle you can just use as a subtitle of this list style. So I'm using list styles here, and there's a subtitle property for a list style if you want to do something like this. We're not going to do it here, but just note that you are able to do that. You can even have a simple text view or text widget there as an example also, so that you can have some labels there and use normal tiles then from there on forth. Right, so that's just a quick introduction for your navigation drawer. So I'm going to close this down, and I want you to go to the following webpage. So you're going to go to http or just type in bit.ly/navdrawer.rss and make sure about the spelling there. So this is the resources that we're going to use for today's lesson. And you'll get this zip file that looks like this, and you're going to download that zip file there. So just make sure you download it, and let's open it up in the folder. I'm going to close down the web page, and there we are with the navigation drawer zip file. I'm going to extract this. So let's say extract all and extract it. I'm going to double click this, and I will need the assets and the defaults folder. So we'll come back to this, just going to keep them open. So we'll come back and we're going to copy the assets folder as well as the defaults folder in here. So what I want to do first, or what you need to do first, is go into Visual Studio Code and create a new blank application. So I called my navigation drawer video. So you'll need to go to View, Command Palette, New Application Project, select where you want it, and then give it a name. So remember, all lowercase, navigation drawer video, or whatever you want to name it. So this is then our file structure, basic structure that gets created as soon as you create a new project. So into that structure, I want you to go and paste these folders. So the first folder we're going to paste is the assets folder. So I'm going to copy the assets folder. I'm going to go to where I've got my project. There's my navigation drawer video. I'm going to go into it. And the assets folder, I want to have directly in the root. So make sure you paste it there. Then when I go back to my downloads and I go to my defaults folder, you're going to copy that defaults folder. Again, go to where your project is saved, into the project folder, and under the lib folder, I'm going to paste this defaults. So under defaults, you'll see there's a defaults ... and we'll go through that now. Okay, so that's basically all you needed to do, is to paste that assets folder where we've got some images, these two images that we're going to use. And you can see this is where I'm using them as the profile picture there, as well as the background there. So make sure you get those two. Then also in your lib folder, under defaults, that defaults.dart file. We'll look at that now. Okay, so we can close down and let's see what we have now in those two folders. So you can see them. There's the defaults folder. We've got defaults.dart. So if I look at the defaults.dart, we will basically be having a drawer item color and a drawer item selected color. So if you look at this, the drawer item color will be this gray color there, the blue-gray. And then when it is selected, we're going to use the colors.blue with a shade of 700, and that's the color that we're using here. And also as part of this defaults class, we've got a static final drawer item text, and that's a list of just string values, inbox, start, sent, drafts, trash, spam, and you can see that's the names for the items we have listed here, and then their corresponding inbox, star, send, mail, delete, warning icons. So these icons is the icons that's listed on the left-hand side. So we're going to use this defaults.dart to refer back to it in order to get all of these icons that we want to use, as well as the colors that we're going to use. Right, so now that that is set up, let's go to our main.dart and let's just clean up some of this that was defaultly added for us. So I'm going to delete all of this. So let's leave that one as my app, and we're going to create a state list widget. And let's call this one my app. So it directly goes from run app to my app, and that's the one that we want. So remember that we should start off with a material app, and that gives me all of the material design features that we need. So I'm going to start with material app, and the material app has got a home. And that home property is where we want to start off with. So for this home property, I'm going to call this one main page and just put the comma there. Now we do not have main page yet. So in order to get main page, let's just use a stateful widget. I'm going to use a stateful widget and I'm going to call it main page. And then everything should be fine. Okay, so we're going to start off with the material app, and the home will be the main page. Now, the reason why I do this, and this should be the structure then for all of your applications, is that you just have the home property as a specific class it links to, and I can even have this main page now in its own file. And the reason behind this is so that inside of your initial app that you run, you only have basically the material app and all of its settings. And you can see there's a lot of settings there. There's initial root, and when we get to roots and adding the roots and so forth, we will get to this. You can also set themes and titles and colors and stuff like that. And all of that will be part of this My App. But your home part should be on its own. So for now, I'm going to leave it inside of this class, but probably for your own apps, as you get designing bigger apps, you will put it in their own files. Okay, so when I get to the main page, then you can see it's a stateful widget. So we have the state class there that's called _main page state, which is private, and this is actually where we will start. So the first thing I want to do before I actually start with anything else is to just go and set up this initial pages that we want to link to. So let's say, for example, I click on inbox, it needs to take me to this page called inbox. And if I go to start, it needs to go to this one. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm just going to keep it very simple. And we will have an index variable declared outside of the classes. So it's going to be a global variable called index clicked. And I'm going to set that initially to 0. So you can see it's outside of my main, it's outside of my app, it's outside of main page. It's a global variable called item or index clicked. And you'll see later on why I did that. It's because we're going to use it in another class, not just in main page. Right, so inside of your state class there, just above your build method, let's go and create these pages that we will need. So I'm going to call this final pages, and it's going to be a list of widgets. Sorry, just the equal sign there. So it's going to be a list of widgets, and these widgets can be anything. So I'm going to keep it very simple because we are not building a page here, we're just looking at the navigation. So I'm going to start with a center widget. And the child for the center widget will be a text widget. And that text widget we'll start off with the first page being inbox. Let me just save this quickly. So let's run this and then we can see the output on the screen. Right, and there we've got the output. Doesn't look like anything yet, so we will look at that now. So I'm going to start off here with a scaffold. So remember that we normally start with the scaffold so that we can have an app bar there. Let's say app bar. And for the app bar, I'm just going to set a title. And let's use a text widget there for the title. And we can say navigation bar example. And let's save that. And at least we can now see something on the screen. Okay, so after that, I'm just going to place a comma so it's nicely formatted. And then after the app bar, we normally have the body. Now, the body, I'm going to set as the following. So the body will refer to these pages at the specific index that's clicked. So I'm going to say index clicked and put the comma there. And if I save, you will see there's the text widget, the very first one. Inbox is right in the middle of the screen. So this center widget now could be anything. You could have a column with different rows in it or whatever. So this is just an example to actually take us to just something very basic. So we'll have inbox. There will be a few. I think there's 5 of them. Okay, so the first one is inbox. The second one will be starred. The third one will be sent. This one will be drafts. This one will be trash. And then there's another last one, which is spam. Okay, so remember that we are basically setting this center widget with the text. And you'll remember this is basically what we started with when we started Flutter, as we started with a center widget with some text in the middle of the screen. And that will be your body, depending on what page you selected here. So if I make this index clicked a 2, and I run this again, then we will see sent as the text widget there, centered in the middle of the screen. So it's a very basic, but remember these pages could be very, very big. You can even have them in their own classes and refer to them here to go to their own classes also for these specific pages. Right, so I'm going to go back to the index clicked as 0 and save that, which I will not see the change unless I rerun this. Okay, so there we go, get inbox again. Okay, so remember when we save, only the build method gets rebuilt, and that's why this index clicked did not change, so nothing else changed. So just remember that. Okay, so in the scaffold, we've got an app bar, and we've got the text widget now. And there's the body. Now, the new thing that we're going to do for today is called the drawer. So for the drawer, we will have the drawer class also as the drawer that moves in from the left or from the right. So by the way, you're going to do exactly the same thing. If you look at your scaffold and you look at the drawer, you will see there's an end drawer and there's a drawer. So the drawer that we're going to build now comes in from the left to the right. So if you change that drawer to end drawer, your drawer will come in from the right hand side to the left. No other changes in coding you needed. You just change this drawer here to an end drawer, and then it will come in from the other side. So that's up to you. Right, so let's look at the drawer quickly. Okay, now, because we need to actually build the top part, which has got that 2 pictures, let's just go to the pubspec.yaml and make sure that we've actually got everything we need. So at the bottom, you'll see there's the assets. So make sure you go into this assets part there. Use your control / and let's set up the assets quickly. So basically what we're going to do is to say we've got an images or we've got an assets folder. Inside the assets folder, we've got an images folder. And because there's more than one image, I can actually just say assets / images / and it should include everything for me. If you've got problems with that not including, then you can go and list them individually. So just saying assets images, so there it is, under assets, there's an images folder, it must include these. So very important on that. And then we can also go and say, let's use the Google fonts again. And I think Google fonts are still at 2.0.0. Okay, so let's just save this one quickly. And that should add your Google fonts package also, so we can use those fonts. and it also includes your assets, and everything seems fine. Right, so let's go into the drawer. So our images are now part of our application. We've got direct access to them. Let's go into the drawer, and for the child of this drawer, I'm going to use a column. Now, if you look at the drawer, there's not a lot of settings, but there's an elevation, which I'm going to leave at 16. And that's just how high it is from the screen, or how high it seems from the screen. So you can change the elevation there if you wanted to. The child is important. So the child is the column that we will use. Now, for this column, there will be some children. And I'm going to start off right from the start. I'm going to set the cross-axis alignment to cross-axis alignment dot stretch to make sure that our picture is spanning the whole drawer there. So let's go into the children, and we will start building the drawer header. So it's just a widget called drawer header, and if you hover over it, there's a lot of things that you can set. And you see there the child parameter is required, which means we need to have the child there. So we will get to the child now. If we actually save now, you will see that the three lines there, and if I click on it, it opens up my navigation drawer. So you can see your navigation drawer is already working, and it's opening up by just doing this, actually just adding drawer there. Now let's go into the drawer header. There's a few things we need to change here. I'm going to start with the decoration. I'm going to use a box decoration where we previously used colors and maybe changed the rounded corners and stuff like that. For now, I'm going to use an image there for the decoration. So that will be my background image. So I'm going to use a decoration image. And that decoration image, just remember your commas at the end. For that decoration image, I'm going to set it to fit box fit dot fill. So it fills the whole area. And then we need to specify the image that we want to use. So I'm going to use the asset image. And that image we will find under assets / images / now if you look at your assets folder, I want to use this drawer.jpg. So I will say drawer.jpg. Now let's see if it actually will do it without that required argument there. So nothing there. Okay, so we'll get to that now. Right, so after this decoration then, I'm going to remove the padding. So I'm going to say edge insets dot. If you can use 0, you can use the 0. Otherwise, you can say dot all and just put in the 0 there. That will also do the same thing. And then after the padding, let's start off with the child. And the child I want to use here will in fact be a container. Right, so inside of this container, I'm going to have a column as the child. For this column, we will have children. Let's start off with a circle avatar. Now for this circle avatar, we will have a radius of 40, and we will have a background image. And the background image will be an asset image. And this asset image will be under assets / images. And you can see we want to use that profile. So I'm going to say profile.jpg. Okay, so now that we've got it rerun, yes, now we can see the background picture there as well as the circle avatar. So maybe in front of that circle avatar, let's use a sized box just to create some space. And I'm going to set the height as, let's say, 10. And save that just to bring your picture down a bit. So you'll see this gray part at the top there, or the faded part there, is actually your notification bar there. It's this, this bar that gives you these icons there. So it's the notification bar. And we want to have it just a bit down from that. This is actually the system user interface that's crashing. It's not the app. Okay, so if I click there, I can see the circle avatar. And now we can add some text there at the bottom. Okay, so we started off with the drawer header. Inside of the header, we added a decoration, which is the image. And that is the image at the background. Okay, and we set it to full. And we added some padding, or actually removed the padding. So let's see what happens if I actually leave the padding there and I save this. Not a big difference. So maybe you would have liked that, but I like to remove the padding and change everything on my own. Okay, and then the child is a container. We start off with a column. There's a sized box with a height of 10. And then we've got the circle avatar with a radius of 40. So if you wanted to have that a bit bigger, to see a bit more of the picture, you can also do that. So I'm going to leave mine at, let's say, 42. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then that's the background image for the circle avatar. And now underneath that, we can go and add our text widgets. So I just want to add some space there again after this circle avatar. So let's say a space of 10 again, and then we can add a text widget. Right, so the text widget now, let's just add some text there. Let's say it's going to be John Rambo. And the style there, I want to make use of Google Fonts. So make sure you click on it so it imports at the top. So you can see at the top it's been imported. So I'm going to say Google Fonts dot, and let's use Sanchez for this one. Okay, so there's my Google Fonts. We're using Sanchez. By the way, if Google Fonts was not imported at the top, you can just use Control dot, and then the import statement should also be here. Okay, so Google Fonts, Sanchez. Let's make some styling changes there. Let's save first so it nicely formats. And let's add the styling there. So let's say something like the font size should be 15. We want to have the color to be colors.white. You can see there the John Rambo there is black, so it doesn't look nice there on the dark picture. So let's make it white, and we can use the font weight to be font weight. Let's go with a 400 there. Save it, put the comma and save. That looks fine. Okay, and then underneath that, we will have another sized box. So let me just go after that text widget. We'll have another sized box. Maybe not 10. Let's use the half of that. So let's use 5. And then I'm going to use this exact same text widget again. It looks a lot the same, just a few styling here and there. So instead of saying John Rambo, let's give him an email address there. So it's going to be john@rambo.com. And for this one, let's make the font size a 10 and let's save. Right, so that seems fine. So this could be your top part. And just remember that you can actually take this to the left. So remember in your column, for example, you can go and say the cross-axis alignment should be, let's say, at the start. And if you save, everything will move to the left. And then you can just add some padding to this column on the left. And you can move it in and everything's on the left. And you can even use a row here now to do something else there. So your options is not limited to what I'm doing here. So for our example, we'll have it right in the middle, and then we will have our items now listed. Okay, so in this column, we've got this. That's all part of the drawer header. So after the drawer header is where we can start now with our items. Right now, so for our items, I'm going to use a list view here. So I'm going to say list view, and the reason why I'm using a list view is so that if there is too many items listed here and the phone is a bit smaller, let's say you've got a smaller phone that only goes up until there, the height of the phone is not as high as this one, then some of your items could cut off, and then it's easy to then just scroll to get those items. So basically what we're doing now is we are making this header fixed, so it stays there, it's always the same size, but you will be able to scroll through everything underneath it. And that's the list view. So you can also use the list view.builder there. But using the list view.builder, you could run into a problem on adding those dividers at the end. So it's up to you whether you're going to use the builder method, because we are actually using, if I just open up the defaults quickly, because we're using lists, your builder works perfectly here as well, because you can just use the index and build the items from there. So yes, your list view.builder will work, but for this example, I'm going to work with a normal list view so that we can add those dividers at the end, and like the example we did with the app name and a version number and stuff like that. So normally your items inside of your navigation drawer will never change. So to make them in a normal list view is not that bad. Now, the first thing I'm going to do for this list view is actually to remove the padding for the list view. So I'm going to say edge insets.0, and I'll show you later on, if we comment this out, the effect that it will have on your list view. Then we will have some children, and the children will now all be list tiles. So I'm going to use a list tile there. And now if you hover over the list tile, you will see that it's got a leading widget, it's got a title widget. So for the leading widget, we'll have the icon. For the title widget, we'll have the text. And then you can also see there's a subtitle. So in the web page, you've seen that there was a subtitle there. So you can use the subtitle for that little grayed out type of text there. And there's also trailing. So if you wanted to add a widget right at the end, you can also do that. So for the list tile then, let's add the leading widget. So the leading widget will be an icon, and this icon, I'm going to refer to my defaults. So it's this file there, this defaults.dot, because there's the icons listed. And I want to use that first one, the first index there. Okay, so I'm going to say the leading icon should be defaults, and it's better if you can choose that from the list, because then it auto import, and then I can use the drawer item icon. And at this stage, I'm just going to set it to a 0 there, so we can see something happening on the screen. Now, when you save, you can see that actually nothing is showing. So if we quickly go and have a look at what is going on, we will see there is a lot of errors actually happening now. And it says the vertical viewport was given an unbounded height, which means that this list view of ours, because it doesn't know how far it should go down, we did not give it a height. We just said, you know, you are part of this column, but we did not specify how much space you can take up. So when you get, or when you're using list views, you can run into this error a lot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the control, hold down my control, use the dot on it, and I'm going to wrap it with a widget. And the widget I'm going to call expanded. So if I save this now, you will see that the item appear and all of those errors are now gone. So if we just go back to the bottom, you can see all of these are now gone. Right, so now if I go back to this expanded widget, what happened now? Expanded just means that for the rest of this column, this list view can take up all of the available space. So remember, there's also for a expanded widget, there's also a flex value that you can set. The flex is normally 1, but because I'm only setting expanded on the list view, it knows that all of the available space is available for the list view, and the list view will take up the rest of the space. Okay, so now we've got the leading widget there. Just put a comma there and save again. So let's just go into this icon quickly, and let's set the size also for this icon. And let's make the size, let's try a 30, maybe a 35. Okay, so let's say that's the size of this icon, and that's the leading widget, which is my icon. And let's also set a color for this icon. So the color will do something different here. For the color, I'm going to look at that index clicked. If the index clicked is equal to 0 in this case, so we will change this later on so it makes a bit more sense. And it actually works for reusing our code. So let's say the index clicked is in fact a 0. Then I want to have the color for this icon to be defaults, which is this defaults class of ours. And then there is an item selected color. But if it's not 0, then I'm going to go to defaults.drawer item color. Let me just save this quickly. So what's happening now, if we run this, let's save, you can see it's actually blue because it's currently selected. It's index number 0. So if the index clicked is a 0, then the color will be the selected color, which is the blue. Otherwise, it will be the normal color. So if I change this item selected at the top to be, let's say, a 1, and we rerun this, you will see that color will change now. So if I click on it, you will see it changes. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at a 0 there. We'll see the change later on. Okay, so this will come in effect a bit later on, so we will look at that. So the color will be based on where in the index is it clicked. So if it's clicked, it must be blue, but if it's not clicked, it must be that blue-gray color. And that's what we're doing here. So we're setting the color based on the index that was clicked. And if the index is 0, which is the same as this one, this is index number 0, then we set the appropriate colors. Okay, so after that icon, we can set the title widget. And for the title widget, we will just have a normal text widget. Now, where do we get the text? Again, there's the text, inbox, starred, sent, the same as with the icons. So it's just another list there that we're using, and it's called drawer item text. So for this text, I'm going to actually use drawer, let's just defaults, dot drawer item text, and also at this exact same index. So if I save this now, you will see it says inbox there. So that is the index number 0's text, which is inbox. Now let's just make some changes to this text. So the second argument, or the first argument, must be the text, and then the rest of the arguments is named arguments. So for the text, we can add just the style there. So I'm going to use style again, and we're going to use Google Fonts.Sanchez again. Right, let's make some changes. Let's set the font size to a 20. Let's see how that changes. That looks fine. Let's set the font weight to font weight. Let's make it a 500 there. Put the comma, save again. That's fine. And let's do the exact same thing with the color, like we did for the icon. So I'm going to take that whole color property there, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing, which means that that inbox should also be blue now. Right, so this seems as if it's working fine. So now if I want to go to another list style, I will need to have to copy this whole thing, copy it, and I'm going to paste it. And the only thing I need to do is to change the index value here. So if the index is 1, and make it 1 everywhere, and there also make it 1, and I save it, there you can see, there's start. That's index number 1. And I can do the exact same thing again. So I can copy this list style again and paste it again, and so it will go down. And because the item clicked property there right at the top is the 0, it means that only the first one will actually be blue, and the rest will all be gray. So as part of the list style also, if you hover over it, you will see there's some functions inside of a list style that helps you to, let me just quickly get there, there's a function called onTap, and that's what happens when you click this list style. So let's go to the first one, and we use the onTap property there, and we quickly say what should happen when we click it. So for this list style, which is at position 0, if you click this one, I want to call set state, and I actually want to change the value for index clicked. So let's just go back there. So I'm going to say index clicked should now have the value of the index that we're currently in, and we are currently at index number 0. So the index clicked should change to 0. Just going to copy this part. Let's just copy this whole onTap. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to do it for this list style also. And this time it's going to go to 1. So let's save it quickly, and let's see what happens. If I click there, this one becomes blue. If I click there, that one is blue. So yes, it's working. Another thing that we also want to do is if we clicked on inbox, this whole drawer should actually disappear. So how do we do that? So inside of the same method, maybe outside of the set state. All right, so what we'll need is navigator dot pop. Now we'll get to talking about this navigator class, which will help us to move between classes and so forth. But for now, just know that this line of coding, navigator.pop, will basically just pop off the previous context. In this case, it is this navigation drawer that we're actually closing. So this line is closing my navigation drawer. So I'm going to use it in that tile and also in this tile for these two. And if I save now, if I click on start, it closes, but you can see start is selected. If I click on inbox, it closes, but you can see inbox is selected. Now, if I click on start, can you see the start page actually opened up? If I click on inbox, inbox page actually opens up. So why is that? It's because the index clicked value changed, and that means that when we set the body, that index changed, which means that it will choose from a different list of pages here, or choose a different page depending on the value that you actually clicked. So yes, everything seems already if it's working quite fine, but you can see that we will have a quite extensive expanded widget here within this, or within the list view, quite expanded set of widgets here that is actually very repetitive. The only thing that changes everywhere is this index value actually. And for the rest of it, everything stays the same. So instead of having this list style copied a few thousand times here. So if we want to extract this widget now, I'm going to use the control and click on dot, and I'm going to say extract widget. Now for this widget, let's call this one app drawer tile, and we should get into a problem here. So it says the reference to an enclosing class method cannot be extracted. So the problem here is this onTap of ours. We cannot actually extract this whole onTap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything inside of this onTap. Let's just save it again. And let's try and extract again. So I'm going to extract the widget. Let's call it app drawer tile again. And you can see now it extracted perfectly. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about what we want inside of this app drawer tile of ours now. So all of the repetitive code is now gone and it's just one line of coding, but we will probably need to pass in something to this. So we don't want to have this index as a 1 there, obviously, because it changes depending on which one is clicked. So what we want to do there is to actually add a final int index. And then inside of this, we will say at required this dot index. So we will definitely need to have the index there, and we will also need to have a method. So you can see we could not actually execute the method here. So that method will also change. If you look at your method there, there's the method. It will say set state, and we will need to set the index value. So again, to set that index value to 0, you'll need to have that index value also passed in. Now, let's look at the following quickly. If I start typing set state here, you will see that set state does not get picked up. Now, let's go back. I'm going to even copy it from here. Let's take that whole part there, and let's paste it here. You can see set state cannot be called in any other place than, in fact, inside of a state class. So you can see that this class extends state. And only between this bracket and the bracket right at the end can you actually call set state. You cannot call it there. So this is becoming a problem for us, which means that we will need to also pass in the function there. So I'm going to use a function. And for that function, let's just call it, I'm going to also make it final. Let's make that function call also onTap. And then there, as part of this function, instead of doing the function here, we will pass that up for the state class to provide the function for me. So it's going to be onTap. Okay, and then we will also just have it at required here. And we're going to say this dot onTap. So to this specific app drawer tile, we will pass in an index and an onTap, and both will be required, and that's why you see this yellow underline there. So we'll need to provide the index and the onTap. OnTap will go into the function of the list style, and where do we want to have the index? Everywhere we have that 1 now, we will use that index. We've got the 1 there, so I'm going to use the index there. We've got the 1 there, so I'm going to use the index there. And we've got a 1 there, so I'm going to use the index there. So I'm going to pass in a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and it's going to place the index value there, 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 and there. So it's essentially the same as having 1 there. But now we can reuse it. Okay, and that's basically it. I think this should work. So let's just check out this one. So what we need, what is required, is in fact the index. So this one is the second one. The first one is there. We can even change this one, but we'll do that now. Okay, so we'll need an index, and let's say the index for this one is a 1. And we'll also need the onTap, which is a function that we want to do something. And inside of that function, I actually want to call this part there. So let's copy it. Put it inside of that onTap. And I want to say the index should be 1, and I should set that to a 1 there as well, if it gets clicked. And if I save it now, let's see if it still works. So if I go to start, I get start, and it's selected. If I go to inbox, I get inbox, and it's selected. So yes, everything is now still working. But I replaced basically this amount of lines of coding, that whole part there, with something that can just be done in a few lines of code. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the top one. So I'm going to copy this, and let's replace this list style with our new list style. And now you can see it's a lot smaller. Everything should still work, except for the index should be 0 for this one, and we are going to set it to 0 there as well. Right, let's click it. Inbox, showing inbox. Starred, showing starred. Working perfectly. Just to make sure, let's rerun it from scratch. Right, so let's open it up. Inbox, there's starred. Inbox again. Everything seems to be working. Okay, so now the question is, if I look at this app drawer tile, I can see that, okay, yes, I need to pass in the index. But this onTap method even looks exactly the same, except for that one simple value. So how can we also reuse this or do something so that we don't need to type all of this every single time we're doing this app drawer tile? So if you wanted to, yes, you can just copy and paste and add the rest. But let's see if we cannot make this a bit shorter still. So what I'm going to do there, let me just take this whole method there. So I'm going to take it from there up until there, the whole anonymous method or function, the whole anonymous function, and I'm going to copy it. And we're going to reuse it somewhere else. So right at the top there, let's do it underneath our pages there. I'm going to declare a function. Now, if you look at your onTap there, you can see it accepts a function. Right, so let's go and we declare this as a function. And we're going to call this, let's say, update state. And the only thing I want to pass in is, in fact, an index again. And that's the only thing that's changing. And then I will just say return, and I'm going to return that whole anonymous function and add a semicolon at the end. And if you save, everything should be fine. So remember, I'm able to call the set state within this bracket and where it closes, which includes this function. So I'm going to return, changing the state of index clicked to whatever the index is that I'm going to actually pass in. So that index will be changed then. So then, when we go down to the bottom, instead of having onTap there, we can now call this function called update state and just pass in the index. So everything from there till there, we can just replace with update state. Remember your comma at the end and passing in the index of 0. So that's a bit shorter now. So let me just copy that part. And we're going to do it the same for this onTap. And let's pass in the value of 1. So again, the coding a bit shorter. Right, so now if I click on start, it's start. If I click on inbox, we see inbox. Okay, and I think our coding or our code is now as short as it can be while still being efficient. Okay, so this is our whole app drawer tile. And the method that we're passing in is the update state. So you can use your control, click on it. It will take you to that method. It takes in an index, it changes the state, and it closes your drawer. Okay. So I think this is the shortest we'll get. Now let's copy the rest now. So I'm going to take that, paste it again, paste it again, paste it again. So let me just see. We're going to have 0, 1, 2. Let's go to 3, 4, and 5. Now let's save it and let's see. Right, so we've got inbox, start, sent, drafts, trash, and spam. Everything working as expected. So let's look at that selected background color that we talked about also. Okay, so we can go down to where we've got this app drawer tile because that's where we define it and how it looks. So the icons will have that specific icon and will have the specific color depending on where it was clicked. So we can also add for a list style. If you hover over it, you can see that there is a selected tile color that works with selected, either true or false. So you can see selected is defaultly false, and then you can say a selected tile color. So if you want to use this, you're going to use both of these values, selected tile color and selected. Okay, so let's see if we can set the selected quickly. How will we know that this specific inbox is now selected? Or if I click on drafts there, how do I know it is selected? Well, that will be if the index clicked, the index that's currently clicked, is equal to this index that was passed in. So we have an index value that was passed in, and if the index that's clicked is equal to the index that was passed in, then we know this specific one was clicked. So in effect, I need to pass in a true or a false value there. You can see initially it's false. So if the index clicked is then equal to index, then it will return true and it will be selected. Right, and then we can now use the selected tile color, and the selected tile color will be colors.blue, and let's use a 100 there. And because this is maybe a color that we could reuse, I'm going to copy this and let's paste it inside of this one. So let's say static final color, and let's say draw selected tile color, and we're going to set that color. So if we wanted to reuse that color, we can do that. So let me just use that one. So it will be that specific value there inside of defaults dot. Okay, there it is. Selected tile color. And if I save it now, you can see that drafts is actually now selected. If I click on send, sent is with a blue background. If I click on spam, spam has got a blue background. If I click on inbox again, blue. So maybe we want to have some space there from the end or from the beginning and the end. And to do that, for this list style, I'm going to add, just use your control dot on it, and we will wrap it with padding. And let's use double click that again, a symmetric one this time. And we set the horizontal padding to 8. Let's just save that again. Yeah, that looks good. So we can leave it at 8, or you can make it a bit smaller. So if I click on drafts, drafts will be selected. If I click on spam, spam will be selected. Right, well done for coming this far. So let's do the last part. We will add 2 dividers as well as 2 text widgets there. So in this list view, remember we can just keep on adding on it. So underneath this app drawer tile, we can now start adding the other widget that we want. We don't need to have all exactly the same widgets in this list view. Okay, so let's start off with a sized box just to get some space in between your divider as well as this list or this last list style. And let's set the height to something like 30. We'll see now if it's enough. And then to add a divider, you just add a divider. That's as easy as it gets. Now for a divider, you will see there's a few items that you can set there. You can set the height, you can set the thickness of the line, you can say if it needs to be indented, so we'll look at those 2 now, and you can set the color. So let's start with a divider, and we set let's just set the height to, let's say 1. Let's set the thickness of it to a 2. Let's set the color of it to our defaults, which contains all of our colors, and we're going to use, let's say, the drawer item color. Now let's save now, and you can see there's the line. It seems a bit thick, so let's make it a 1. And if you hover over it, you can see it's a double, which means that you can go even lower to 0.2 or something like that if you want a really thin line. So let's just go with 1 there. I think 1 will be fine. Okay, let's make the height 10. Okay, so you can just see it changes, it just moved down a bit. So I'm going to set the height as a 1, that's fine. The thickness is a 1. The color we've set. Now let's look at the indentations there. So I can say indent 2. So if I save this, you can see, okay, maybe 2 is too little. Let's make it a 20 just to see the change. So you can see from the left-hand side, it's indented a bit. So let's make that a 3. Okay, so just a small bit indented. And then if you want to have the indentation on the right-hand side also, then that is the end indent. So let's make that 3 also. And save, and you can see it's moved a bit from the side. So actually, let's just make this 30 and 30. And you can see on both sides it's the same. So I'm going to leave it at, let's say 3 for now. Okay, so that's our divider. It looks fine. We've got it, given it a height, a thickness, a color, and some indentation. Right, so let's add our sized box there again after the divider, just to get some space there. And let's make this one a 10 in height. And then we will add the text widgets. So let's add the text widget first. Let's say the text should be Jetmail. That's the name of the company that's making the app, or maybe the app name, or whatever you want to put there. And let's use the style property there and use Google Fonts again. Let's use that same font Sanchez again. Let's save. Okay, so you can see it's set to the side. So if you want to change that, use a control dot on the text widget and wrap it with a center. If we save, yeah, nicely in the middle of the screen. Okay, let's style this text quickly. Let's set the font weight to a font weight dot 500. Let's set the font style to a font style dot italic. Let's set the font size to a 20. And let's set the color to defaults dot draw item selected color. And let's save it. Yeah, that looks fine. Right, so that is the center widget. Now let's use this whole center widget with the text again. So I'm going to paste it there. And let's save. Right, so that one probably will need some sized box in between, so we get some space between them. And let's make the space not that much. Let's make it a 5. Okay. Then we can add the version number there, so we can say this is version 1.0.1.2.5 or whatever you want to add there. And let's change this a bit. Let's keep it italic and everything the same, but let's make it a 12 there. And let's make this not the draw item selected color, but just the drawer item color. And let's save it. Okay, so it just stands out a bit, the Jetmail there, and then the version number underneath it. And then we can have that sized box again underneath the center. And then we can end off with the exact same divider. So even now you can see I'm reusing code here, actually duplicate coding here. So if you've got a divider, I'm not going to do it now, but you can also extract this divider and name it yours. Let's do it quickly. Extract the widget and let's call it app drawer divider. And you can say OK there, and I can just have app drawer divider there, copy that one. Wherever I've got dividers and I need them, I can just paste that one line of coding and it will still work the same. Okay, so that's a bit of code reuse there, and even you could have done it the same for the text widget also. Because we use the same font weight, we use the same font style, we use different colors, so you can maybe pass in the color and the font size and the rest, and the text maybe, and the rest stays the same. So it depends on your own example there. Right, so there's your divider. You can place this in its own class, whatever you want to do. And also, if it's a const constructor, and you can set some of these to constants, this one could actually become a const also, which is a lot better. So the size box, for example, can become a const. This one can become a const. That one can become a constant. Your sized box can become a constant. Let's make that one a constant as well, because you're using a method. You cannot have those as constants. So also remember to run through your coding and see where you can actually replace some of your widgets with a const widget, because that will really make it a lot better performance-wise. And remember, it's this build method that gets rebuilt. So the more things that you can actually add a const to inside of this build method, the better your performance will be. So let's just save for now, and let's see if it works. If I click on inbox, I get inbox. If I click on sent, I get sent. Yeah, everything working as expected. So I hope you've learned something from this video on how to do your navigation bar. It's quite easy to do your navigation bar, but just keep in mind that all the indexes and stuff that we did here to extract some widgets, just to make your code a bit easier to read and to maintain. For example, let's say I want to change these colors now. I don't need to go into every single part in my coding where I change the colors. I can go to my defaults and say, well, that color should not be blue-gray anymore, but let's make it a dark blue-gray. And if I save and I rerun this, I click there, you can see now all of my color changed. All of my colors changed where I've used that, but the rest still stays the same. And this will help you actually to make changes to your code quite fast instead of taking a very long time to just change one simple color, especially for going to your customer and you're showing this to him, and you need to take about 10 minutes to quickly do all the color changes, then you're going to waste his time and your own. So this is also a nice way to quickly do a color change throughout your app. So make use of a file like this one, that I did here for defaults. That will save a lot of time. Okay, and that's it then for this video. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.